student union and what your main policies and objectives are. The first person I'll be calling on would have been Serene Singh, and I've got a prepared statement from her, which I'll just read now. Okay. Apologies, I couldn't be with you all right now. I appreciate the opportunity to have some of my words read aloud, so it is almost as though I'm there. As you know, my name is Serene Singh, and I'm a DPhil postgrad student in criminology with Faculty of Law. I'm also an international student on the Rhodes Scholarship. I tell you about my identities: a postgrad student, an international student, a funded scholar, not to pitch myself for this position, but rather highlight that I do not need this position. Not for the resume, the money, the fame, none of it. I'm running for this position because I know what I can bring to the table and to our Oxford community. And it starts with being someone who is quite literally 0% self-interested and 100% impact focused. The truth is, my intentions are very clear in running, given what I've mentioned. It can only be one thing. I want Oxford to be a better home for students than I've seen it to be. I know you've probably read through my manifesto and looked at my LinkedIn already, but I do promise to give Oxford Student Union my all if elected. As an educator myself, this work is at the heart of why I do what I do, and it is what I am best at. I promise, if elected, to ensure all students know about the work I do as I do it, holding me accountable to my promises, the voices of students, and the needs of the community. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I love getting to meet people and hearing about their journeys. Okay, so that is a nice statement by Serene. I'll do the second prepared statement for Adam Abdallah. So it goes as thus. Hello, it's Adam, your PG friend from St. Anthony's College, running to be your NUS delegate this year. The last 2 years have been hard for the entirety of our student body, and the National Union of Students needs to be pushed harder to provide more protection for vulnerable students, to fight against further marketization of our universities, and lobby Universities UK to divest from companies that contribute to the destruction of our planet. My priorities would include working with the rest of the delegates on proposing motions to the NUS obliging the student unions to allocate more money for student hardship funds, as well as campaign on divest from arms manufacturing and others. I'm the best candidate for this position because I've got extensive experience with student representation, campaigning, and because I will push for NUS for you. Having already been elected twice with my previous university as an NUS delegate, I already know the ins and outs of that union. Let's make this a hat trick and vote Adam for NUS delegate. Okay, so now that's the prepared statements out of the way. The first speaker I'll call on is Kieran. So yeah, Kieran sorry. Kieran Tobin, please. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so the reason I want to basically is I have no experience in the NUS, and before I even had a look, I didn't really know anything about the NUS. And that's the issue. So no one knows anything about the NUS. Sure, we know it represents us, but we don't know what actions it takes, what it does in our daily lives, and I kind of want to change that. But also not just trying to increase its publicity and appearance. I just want to have some basically some points of issues that I think we can bring up at conference. So not only transparency, I think we need to, after the 2019 recommendations the NUS gave on the Poverty Commission, I think we can build upon that and work on making a fuller outreach of what it means to have social mobility at universities, not just economical, but also cultural. So how do we support those from backgrounds that don't really have the experiences that others do, and how do we bridge that across? So really at conference, I want to try and create a broader change on that point. And further to that, so with this lack of experience, I think I can mitigate it by having been involved with Class Act at Oxford. So myself, part of this campaign, I've tried to campaign across the university for Class Act to be more visible, and on top of that, personal campaigns such as the national living wage around colleges. So I think all of this really builds and culminates to a view that if I was to become a delegate, then hopefully I would bring some of this experience to conference. And yeah, I'll keep it short because I'm sure we all have things to do.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Okay, next up we have NUS Delegates.
Yeah, thank you, Thomas. Yeah, well, to be honest, I have plenty of experience in student politics when it comes to like being a youth council member, and I had a lot of projects in my last local authority. I pushed for cycle lanes when they tried to remove them, and I also, the last thing I did before leaving for Oxford was question councillors on the rents for young people and the problem of social housing not being available for young people who are in care. And also, I would like to run because I think there is a gap in our education system when it comes to technology. So I would like to put forward a motion on investing in technology and bringing it to education. I have my motion already on the website. You can check it on my manifesto. And yeah, there is a website that uses AI to teach you A levels, which I used by a scholarship for people on free school meals. And I think these websites are already there. They just need to be available for everyone, not just the people who get scholarship or the people who can actually afford them. So yeah, the entire reason I would like to run is that I would like to help the students in the UK, not just on a university level, but also sixth form. And I think NUS already tried to do a lot of changes. And I would like to push also for reforming the Gender Recognition Act, and helping universities and educational institutes become more green friendly. So yeah, that's why I would like to run. Thank you. Thomas, I think you're still on mute.
You're muted.
Yeah.
So sorry about that. Thank you for reminding me. Thank you very much. Very nice speech. Next up, we've got Sarah Akintunde.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I am a law student at Magdalen, and I think I'll be a good NUS delegate because I have extensive experience representing students. I've been involved in the SU for a while. Last year I was elected BAME and LGBT rep. I have already attended one NUS conference, but this was a liberation conference, so this is for marginalised students. Therefore, I think I've got experience with how the NUS conferences work. In NUS conferences, as delegates, we're invited to vote on behalf of motions. I think I'll be a good representative to vote on behalf of Oxford students because I've attended many representative committees and student councils, and I sit on my JCR. Therefore, I've been listening to what students want and what they need. I think we've all discussed how in Oxford there's a need for more transparency around what the NUS does. Therefore, I pledge to, if attending the conference, produce a report on the proceedings of the NUS, so we all know what it does, because it's vital for if you're going to represent people, that people know what you're representing and what you're fighting for. It's my aim. I've got certain aims that are in line with NUS current priorities. So the two big NUS current priorities are decolonising the curriculum and providing, I forgot what it's called exactly, but something about providing free education, like a new vision of education. In keeping with this, in regards to new vision of education, I want to see an education system where students from underrepresented backgrounds not only are like subject to access schemes, but also once they get into university, they continue to be supported. Because I said on my manifesto, it's all well getting students through the door, but often once they get here, they find themselves like a fish out of water. I want to work on diverse and decolonized curricula, and this includes squarely confronting the legacy of colonialism that we have here, as well as looking into diverse perspectives around different degrees. I also
you're mute again.
Sorry, I'm good at muting everyone else, apparently, but myself. Sorry, Sarah, we just have to be so strict for 2 minutes. So next, we've got Alex Novak.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone. It's hard to sit here and argue I'm the best candidate, but I certainly think that I can contribute a lot in merit being one of your 7. I've been involved with education my whole life. My degrees are varied from arts and science, part-time, full-time, business, international, national. So I've lived the student life in every capacity. In every degree that I've done, I've been involved in student life as mentorship, VP of academic affairs, a co-class rep, and a lot of ways in alumni engagement as well. But I think if anything, what I really bring to the role that is unique is that I've worked in higher education administration as a program manager and student advisor for 6 years. And that was a little while ago at McGill University. And so I'm very familiar with all of the issues, the policies, the workings, and everything that makes universities tick, and how to work with them and how to work with their leaders to get changes done. So, I've handled sensitive issues from policy, curriculum, mental health of students. And this is what really puts together the package of beliefs that I have and what I want to drive for change. And that's pretty much breaking through the red tape. I think a lot of issues in higher education are hidden behind veils and students' voices are not strong enough. So the policies I want to promote at the NUS are those that will give greater voice, membership, voting rights on committees for students, as well as greater transparency and sharing of documents and information, more funding for underrepresented students across demographics, and also just generally more avenues for student resolution and preventing problems. A lot of students, especially now that I've gotten to know, the graduate student life even more fully, they suffer in silence, intimidated, you're quiet, you don't get a chance to speak up. And this is the wide mass of people that I want to represent and push for change for. Nobody should have to deal with these kind of challenges or suffer on their own. And
sorry, again, 2 minutes has been really strict. Yeah, feels kind of weird to mute people, but okay. Thank you very much, Alex. Now we've got Munda Shamak.
Munda Bashmak. All right. Now, what I believe makes me an effective candidate for the NUS delegate is that my platform actually has quite important issues to the student body. Now, that is promoting social mobility for a lot of students, such as myself, who come from working class backgrounds and have actually had to work a lot harder to get into this type of position, and to lower the rent for students, which again would start to use the lobbying power of the NUS. Now, these platforms are still appealing, but that isn't necessarily what makes me the best candidate. Where I think it differentiates me from the rest is that I've been able to make real-world substantive changes to the community that I came from, Liverpool, and to Oxford itself. Working with OCF, I helped write bids that were to raise tens of thousands of pounds for the charity to promote digital inclusion and to help combat the homelessness crisis across Oxford, which actually has a substantial impact on our day-to-day lives. I've also worked with the Merseyside Domestic Violence Service to help protect women in vulnerable situations and to make more substantive changes to their long-term living situation, as well as help protect them and the children in the immediate situation. Now, these factors will be quite substantive for me working with NUS, as I would go in there with the ability to actually get things done. Now, this goes beyond just working on a certain campaign or raising awareness, as a lot of other people have done, which, not to discourage these types of activities, but more often than not, they tend to fade as quickly as they come. What makes me different is that I've actually been able to make a genuine impact to the lives of different people. And that is something that I wish to continue forward with the NUS.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've now heard from all candidates on the initial question. So now we're going to move on to the 1-minute questions. The first one of which is, what motivated you to apply for the role? Now, we are going back to reverse order. So first one up again is Munda Barshamak.
Sorry, can you repeat that question? I didn't hear you the first time.
Oh, yes, of course. It was, what motivated you to apply for the role?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think this goes back to my willingness and desire to actually help people coming from my situation specifically and the general student body. I've never been the type of person to just fade into the background or be silent about matters that are of importance to me. And I think that NUS gives us an opportunity to actually make these changes into more permanent structural benefits to the whole student body. Now, stuff like rent and social mobility for students, I believe, go hand in hand, and to work on one issue is to further the other. And I've always been a firm believer in actually making these types of initiatives into reality, and that's something that's kind of promoted me myself to try to use the lobbying power of the NUS to achieve that reality.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, we've got Alex Novak.
Thank you again. We have 12 candidates here from thousands of students at Oxford. Every one of us has a very valid motivation. I think that questioning our passion is a waste of time. What I think is really effective that I would bring to the position is that I understand how change actually can take place and how you have to balance working together with fighting the system and getting your policies enacted. You know, it's one thing to just bring a voice to something. It's another thing to get the change done. And I was thinking about it, just speaking with a colleague a couple of days ago on a walk, and I really want to be able to drive concrete change. And that's a unique perspective I can bring to, you know, our massive fellow passionate students. So the understanding of the system and working the system.
Okay, thank you very much. Next up, can we hear from Sarah?
Hi, can you just repeat the question again before I go?
Yeah, of course. The question is, what motivated you to apply for the role?
I was motivated to apply for the role primarily because like the idea of representation is very important to me. I think it's very easy for many students to feel like they don't have a voice. All the voice they have is kind of stifled and not heard. So, sorry.
Okay, have you finished or are you still going?
Sorry, my internet's being a bit.
Okay, I'll pause the timer, give you a couple seconds to get back ready again.
Yeah, sorry. Right, I'll just restart. Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about the representation of students. And I also feel motivated to do the role because my experience in the NUS Liberation Conference last year really opened my eyes to the problems that certain marginalised communities face in universities. And I wish to attend like the nationwide general conference because I think it's important to get a view to the different experiences of all students and make sure to bring that marginalised voice not just to its separate little conference, but also highlight that generally amongst the general student population. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, now can we hear from Anas?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, everyone, I completely agree. The motivation that we have is just to help people, honestly. And yeah, I would like to. I know for a fact that students can push for change, especially when the government is, you know, still trying to find new ideas on how to help students. So we can definitely do a huge amount of change. And the reason is really to contribute to those campaigns that I truly care about, the reforming the Gender Recognition Act and the new vision for education and also the student loans, as well as putting forward the motion on tech and education, because I feel like for a long while, technology is not mentioned, and the pandemic showed that, you know, technology is important. So yeah, I feel like we should definitely start talking or having that discussion before it's too late. So that's the reason I would like to, you know, that's the motivation for running. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Anas. Okay, finally, Kieran.
I think specifically for the role, at least for me, it just seems that I just thought everything about the NUS just seems pointless. They do nothing and everything. But from the whole student union at Oxford, it seems, and certain sabbatical officers that have been really kind in showing what they can do in reality, I just think this body is flexible. This body can do things, from potentially banning student-staff relationships to increasing access to financial welfare support for the transgender community. This body can do things, and I believe that I want to be part of the process of showing that it can, and that it actively does. So people like me that were like kind of a bit stereotypically ignorant of the NUS, don't do that in the future, and just find out that yes, we can do anything we want as students.
Okay, very nice. Thank you, Kieran. Okay, so next question is, and again, ask me to repeat the question whenever you need. Where do you think the university or the union fails the most currently? And then we'll be going back down the list again. So starting off with Kieran.
Wait, sorry, you cut off in the middle. Do you mind repeating it?
Of course, yeah. Sorry. I'm echoing. So if you can mute yourself just when I speak. Thank you. So the question is, where do you think the union or the university fails the most right now?
So I'll bring it back to the previous point I made, basically about transparency. So showing the student body that what they do through college life and through student life. So whether that's increasing our media presence, or as the previous or the current student union president has done, constantly write articles for the student journal newspapers around university. So basically, I think they have a lot of work to do to show that the student union is separate, at least from being just another student body. So like, I mean, you'll hear it constantly, you know, if you say you're going to the student union, people think the union rather than student union. So we need to change this this priority and how we view what the student union is, and show that it's a distinct body that has distinct roles and distinct priorities for students.
Okay, thanks very much. Anas?
Yeah, personally, I think one of the things they're failing on is the support for offer holders. Basically, I was on a Zoom call before I came to Oxford when I was an offer holder about how care leavers and people who are like might have different special circumstances. Basically, the student union, one person contacted them and they managed to support them in terms of housing. The only issue with that is that obviously a lot of offer holders might not know that student unions can support them, as well as the university. St. John's is good at that. They do contact you beforehand and double check. But the sad truth is that other colleges and the rest of the university and the union is not outspoken about it, or maybe they just don't offer the support out loud. So I think that is one factor that, you know, is should be worked on.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, next up is Sarah.
Hi, I'd agree with Kieran and say the biggest problem facing the student union right now is transparency and openness with the student body. I think a student body is like, the student union is only powerful when students engage with it. And it needs powerful people who care about the issues to engage with it further to produce change. So yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, that's short and sweet. Okay, Alex.
Thank you again. Delineating the two, I would say that the student union is similar to what other people are saying. It's not so much transparency. I think that it's very transparent. I think that it's just not enough visibility towards the causes that they have. So maybe it's a marketing, branding, communications thing. But having worked with them a little bit as a new student, they're a fantastic group. So really visibility. On the university front, though, there's a couple of things. You can look at it from the gravity of situations, where students' rights, research doctoral students, for example, might feel intimidated and pressured. And so taking care of these issues, confidentiality and quickly are important. But also just, general representation of graduate students, which are half the population of the university, but are very, very minimally engaged in comparison to the undergrad servings, I think is the greatest wide-ranging issue or miss from the university, although not the most grave and important to deal with in terms of mental health and taking care of the student body.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Next up, we've got Munda.
So what I think the biggest failing of the union is that it really comes down to two issues. Now, to start with, there's a disconnect between the student body and the student union itself. I think very few members of the university actually fully appreciate and relate to what the union does on a day-to-day basis. And through this lack of information and connection, there exists this inability for the student union to actually exercise its power as the lobbying force for students. And this also comes down to the second issue, which is an unwillingness by the union itself, and this is not unique to Oxford, but the whole National Student Union, to actually get involved in local issues such as rent and services directly within the universities. Now, within the in the past, such as in the 70s and 80s, there was actually this quite a militant nature of the union that actually did help secure a lot of systemic changes to the university system for students that I believe isn't being done nowadays. And I think that's something that the union itself can work to advance in the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, the next question is, what do you think is the biggest challenge you plan to conquer in the role if you get it? Again, we're going back up the list. So Munda, you're first up.
Now, I'll grant this is quite an ambitious challenge that I wish to take. But for me, it's to increase the organizational strength of the student union. Now, to help it relate more to students on a day-to-day level, I think it will actually help the student union in the future, and even in the short term to help it get involved in a lot of college issues and represent students more effectively. This type of issue is something that I think a lot of students relate to, as to be able to have a strong lobbying force behind the student union for individual students in the day-to-day issues would actually really change the power dynamics from the university to the student body. It would help to enact a lot of the social changes, a lot of the changes in policy that students want to enact on a university level, and to actually have a single unified voice through the student union to be able to achieve that would be something that would be very significant and would actually be quite a historic change in the power dynamics of universities in the country.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we move back on to Alex.
Thank you again. I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's any hope of achieving what I would love to achieve, but it's more just making steadfast progress. So when it comes to advocating for policy for student protection and student rights, I want to increase any means of transparency and further engagement of students. So whether it's one extra student sitting on a committee somewhere that brings forward long-term change that is regimented and in the books that can then domino effect other change, that's what I'm going to try to achieve within the particular areas outlined in my manifesto. But I can't sit here and promise I'm going to change the system fully and completely on day one. So I say that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Alex. Very honest answer. Next up, we've got Sarah.
Hi, sorry, could you repeat the question one more time, please? Thanks.
Of course, yeah. What is the biggest challenge you plan to conquer, is the word I wrote down, but accomplish is a more appropriate synonym, if you got the role?
I think the biggest challenge is reforming the culture of and the problems around sexual assault in universities. I look at through speak on different policies, agendas for the National Union of Students. So it's not exactly just Oxford centric. So I think it's going to be quite difficult to kind of scope the kind of like atmosphere around the entire country and come up with solutions that all will agree with and all will benefit from. And I think it's a very rampant problem. So I think that's going to be something quite difficult to tackle, considering the adversity of some places to things like banning student-staff relationships and reforming the student sexual harassment reporting, the kind of way that you report things. So I think that's probably going to be the biggest challenge.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, next up is Anas.
Yeah, well, the biggest challenge, obviously, as I mentioned about my motion, it would be to turn that, because developing those websites would take a long time, and it would go through bureaucracy of government and all of that. So we should start right now rather than just wait until 10 years and then start later, and then all students would be disadvantaged. So the hardest thing to do would be to actually turn that into a campaign to force the government to work on that digital curriculum. Again, those websites already exist, but they're only accessible by the people who can actually afford them. One of the websites I mentioned was cost actually £600 for a year. I highly doubt anyone can afford that in a state school. And yeah, those websites are so good. They actually promise you that if you don't get an A star on an A, you'll get your money back. So those websites, I think, should be available for everyone, not just for the people who can afford them. So the hardest thing would be to actually try and change that.
Okay, thank you very much, Anas. Finally, Kieran, just to finish.
Yeah, so I mean, basically what Sarah said, to be honest, it's banning student-staff relationships. It's not just an Oxford problem, to be honest. It is a problem across the country, but specifically for Oxford, because of our college system and how varied each college have on a policy of student-staff relationships. It's just disgusting that we still have it in this age. And I think Oxford itself has been having a bit of a worse problem because of its structure. So really, that is the main issue that I'd focus on. And yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much to everyone who's come and participated today. But unless anyone's got any final questions or anything that needs to be sorted out, that's the end of Husting. Thank you very much for thank you very much for coming. It was actually quite an interesting discussion, in my opinion, and I got to learn some much more diverse views on some of the issues facing our university. But I don't want to keep you any longer. It's already been close to an hour. So I hope you guys all have a great evening. And yeah, good luck. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good luck, everyone.
Thank you.